Hello, my friends. Murphy Daily here on Written by Murphy, and I'm taking a moment of wonder. Today, I've been getting into a book that I mentioned yesterday, Educated. I hope to finish it today because it feels pretty heavy to me. It's a story about a girl who was homeschooled her whole life and ended up getting into university and following through with that. And the first part of the book, Kitty, was talking about how she was a child and what it was like to be homeschooled. And now I'm just in part two where she's talking about she challenged to get into university, went against her parents' wishes. The thing about this is it is extremely close to my experience. She was more neglected in her homeschool experience than I was. My mother did take the time to make sure that I was learning something every day during homeschool, but it was extremely Christian and extremely limited to a worldview. And certainly as a woman, I was not expected to pursue education for myself. It could be treated as a hobby, because first I was supposed to pay attention to what my family needed from me, and then if I had time, I could do things like education as craft work, like you might knit. So I listened to this book and it sends shudders down my spine because I have changed from that time. But it reminded me, she mentioned a glancing experience with Shakespeare, just hearing the word. But I remember one thing that happened is my oldest brother came back from college one summer and threw some Shakespeare plays at me. He goes, "Here, you might enjoy these." So I picked them up. I was 12 years old, and I fell in love with Shakespeare. I had heard of Shakespeare. Ooh, Shakespeare is cool. Shakespeare is what smart people do, right? And I read it, and having spent a lot of time with the King James translation of the Bible, this language was extremely familiar to me. So it felt like home when I was reading it, and it felt beautiful and smart for the first time to me, and I loved it. And I thought, I need more of this. Now, at that time, I had already just been in homeschool, but the Christian school that I had been part of before had a library. And one time we visited that building, and that library had, oh, someone's joined. Oh yeah, if you're watching, give me a 1. And if you're watching the replay, please write replay. I want to know that you're hearing what I'm saying. So I went into that library and I saw they had a book that was the complete works of Shakespeare. And I was hungry for that book. Technically, I could have gotten it from the library, where I got most of my books from, but it was too long to read from the library during the time that I could have it checked out, and I just wanted that book. And I looked at that library, and I'd gone to that school for years before, and I thought, they're never going to know. They don't appreciate this. They certainly never shared it with me. Nobody reads this. And I stole it. I stole the complete works of Shakespeare, feeling very ashamed and guilty that I did it, but also a sense of they don't deserve it. I want to read this. And so I read it. I didn't finish all of the plays. I really wanted to, but I started with the sonnets. He has poems, and I didn't know what a sonnet was. I just knew they were poems. And so I read them and enjoyed some of them more than others. I found some of them confusing, you might imagine. But I really enjoyed Shakespeare. And then Mom had noticed that I enjoyed Shakespeare. And in Anchorage, there was a Shakespeare play. So she took me to see my first Shakespeare play a couple years later. But she took me to see Othello. Othello is not what I would call a starter play, but I liked it. There was a lot going on with it, and I wanted more. A couple years later, I did manage to find a complete works of Shakespeare, I think at a garage sale maybe. And so once I had my own, I returned the complete works to the Christian school library that had never noticed it was gone. Kitty. But I have a recording set that I found at a rummage sale of the complete works of Shakespeare. Every single play performed and recorded, an audio recording of every single one. And I am busy right now, it's behind me, converting those CDs to digital, which seems almost as ancient as the Shakespeare in English. I had to go find an old computer that had a CD player. So now I'm transferring it to digital format so that I can listen to them. And so I'm excited about this. I want to listen to every single one. So I think I'm going to make it Shakespeare week. So I might come back and let you know what I think of the different plays. I have seen a number of plays since. It seems like the same ones get done again and again and again. And I would like to see the other ones. I'd like to know what this is about and let you know what I think of them. So that's what I'm thinking about today. Thinking about the loneliness of being a autodidact, a self-taught person, and how that can be hard. But I'm not alone. Tara Westover, the author of Educated, knows this feeling. And it's got some benefits. You don't have to wait for somebody else. It is a steep cliff, but there you go. All right, I'd be interested in your comments. Let me know what you think of what I'm talking about. And let's continue the conversation.